I'm Janet Morena, Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. Well, today we are going to have a very good friend of mine and Father Frank Pavones on our program, a great star at EWTN TV and radio. And the doctor is going to be in the house, and we're going to talk about advice for parents. We're going to talk about Jesus, a lot of fun things. So, joining me right now, my dear friend, Dr. Rager and Dave. Doctor, welcome to my program.
This is going to be the easiest program I've ever done. You know why, Janet?
Why?
Because you said just ask Janet. So anybody, anything they ask me, I'll just say just ask Janet.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
That's all I got to do.
Well, Dr. Ray, I know there's a lot of people out there, they've been following you for years and years and years. And of course, I think one of the earliest books you wrote was this one here, right? Discipline That Lasts a Lifetime. And funny thing, right before we came on the air, my producer asked you a question about his 14-year-old daughter.
He owes
And
me
I think,
$80.
and I think we should pose the question right now, because I think there's a lot of parents out there that are facing this problem with their children, especially daughters right now. They give them these phones, right? And then so they have access to all kinds of things. But Rob, my producer, his question was, his 14-year-old daughter was talking back to him. How does he deal with that by just saying, "Don't talk to me like that"? So what was your advice now on camera, Dr. Ray, to Rob, our producer?
Talking back, Janet, is a nice way to say it. It makes it sound like the child is exchanging a discourse with a parent. In fact, most of the time, it's nasty talk. It's mean, it's demeaning, it's an ugly tone, it's rolling of the eyes.
Yep.
I tell parents, God gave you 10% of the commandments. He mentioned you by name. Honor thy father and thy mother. As a shrink, the number one problem I see behavior-wise is nasty talk, disrespect, dwarfs all the others. Now, why is this? A lot of reasons. But I think parents have gotten to the point where they allow an awful lot of it. I'll say to a parent, what would your mother have done had you talked to her like your daughter is talking to you? Oh no, I didn't. Why not? I just knew. You knew what? Something would happen. What? I don't know. Why don't you know? It never happened. Why didn't you do it? Something would have happened. What? I don't know. Who's on first? I don't know. Third base. It speaks of the perception of authority. A rule we had in our house with our passel of kids, in any way, shape, or form, you do not talk nasty to your parents. You just do not. There will be immediate consequences. There will be strong consequences. It's just something that you don't do. And that was a very early rule, and it created so much more peace in our family. So sometimes I'll ask parents, well, what do you do when your child talks that way? Well, I tell her, you better not talk that way. What do you do? Well, she knows we don't tolerate it. What do you do? If she gets a warning, I'll tell you that. We don't put up with that kind of talk. What do you do? After about my fourth do, they go, oh. What do you do?
That's right.
Now, I would tell
Action.
Rob.
And so, Dr. Ray, the point here is actions have to have consequences, right? So if they talk back to you, you don't tolerate it, but then you have to inflict some sort of punishment.
Oh, you
right?
can't use, Janet.
What?
You can't use that word. It's so psychologically inappropriate. We have to speak of natural repercussions.
Oh, okay.
The problem is, and I've really wrestled with this, why do so many parents of this generation and even mine deal with the kind of disrespect that our parents did not deal with?
Yeah.
One of the reasons is me, the shrinks, the experts. We have told parents that you have to allow a child to express herself. You want to know what's on her mind. If she disagrees with you, you need to hear that. That's true as long as it's done respectfully. The problem is parents allow expression of feelings that is really ugly. And it distorts the relationship. Parents will say to me all the time, I don't like my own kid. Well, I tell you what, if my friends talk to me the way your child is talking to you, I wouldn't like my friends either. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, it's not good for the child. This doesn't help the child at all to treat their mother or their father, the people who do more for them than everybody else in the world put together, with the least respect. Just some thoughts. Any more is going to cost you money. Any more is going to cost you money.
Any more is going to cost us money. And then before I get into your newest book in a minute, one more piece of advice, because I know Teresa Tomeo and I, we've covered this on the Catholic View for Women on EWTN many times, but cell phones now, okay? I cringed that my own granddaughter is going to be 10, and for Christmas, they just got her own phone at 10. And when I heard this, I flipped out with my daughter. I said, you're kidding me. You're really kidding me? What can you say to these parents that are now giving these kids phones? I say it's a portal into evil, right? How are you going to watch everything that they can access on these phones, right?
The average age, your niece is getting a smartphone. It's not a cell phone. It's a smartphone. It's a computer in the hand at age 10, which is now the average age that kids get smartphones in our culture. Parents will say to me, what is the biggest mistake I can make as a parent? Oh, that's easy. Give them a smartphone. At age 12, 13, 14, 15, give them a smartphone. It will bite you. You will find that out. And the reason it won't bite you is because you didn't find out. That's a 90+% rule. It's automatic. Do you know how many boys ages 11 to 19, Janet, have seen pornography?
I have no idea. How many?
Over 90%.
Oh my good. And it's on the phone, right?
Well, yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. And the stuff that comes through social media.
Yeah. It's terrible. So
it'll confuse their gender. Confuse their gender terribly. Yeah. There's all kinds of surveys that have said this. Social media really pushes gender confusion.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Well, I hope parents realize, I think when you said get a flip phone instead of a smartphone, because some parents use the excuse, Dr. Ray, that, well, in case the kid needs me and practice ended early, they have to be able to call me, you. Well, a flip phone will do that, won't it?
I have two answers to that. One, if you offer a child a flip phone, because that's the excuse that children give you, because they know that's a parent's soft spot, say, okay, you're right. Here's a flip phone. The 92.7563% of children, that's just my rough estimate, will not take a flip phone. Oh, there's no way I'm going to use that in front of my, mom, no flip phone. So that's the first thing. The second thing is this. How am I going to get a hold of you? Well, from what you tell me, every single one of your friends has a phone. Use one of theirs.
That's a good one. I like that. Use your friend's phone. Anyway, Dr. Ray, you have written so many books. Like I was just holding up a few of them here. Discipline That Lasts a Lifetime. I like this one. When faith causes family friction, as we know, that's like everything that you shouldn't be talking about at the Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter table, right? Because then there's all this colliding. But I'm really interested here in your newest book, Jesus, the Master Psychologist. Listen to him. I never thought of Jesus as a psychologist, but what made you come up with this whole concept for this book?
One of the dumbest things that people can say about Jesus, and when they say it, they think they sound smart. Jesus was a good man. Janet, I'm a shrink. If somebody tells me they're God, they're either delusional or they're a liar or they're horridly misguided. But one thing I do know is they're not a good man. So you have to make a choice about Jesus. Is he who he said he is, or is he not? If you decide he is who he said he is, then you absolutely have to listen to him, because he's God and he knows the very best way to live. And when he tells us those ways, if they disagree with modern psychology, or if they disagree with the way Ray Guarendi wants to run his life, we're wrong. He's God. He knows the best way to live.
That's true. That's true. But how come we don't listen to him? Like, when you think about it, he gave us, we have all the gospels, we have all the parables, we have the 10 commandments. I mean, he kind of told us the path we should be on, and yet we keep messing up, or don't we?
He gave us principles. The
Uh-huh.
problem is we've become a how-to society. In other words, if Jesus says, don't be anxious about tomorrow, or if he says, when you're insulted, turn the other cheek, the question people will immediately ask is, well, how do I do that? Tell me how to do that. You're the psychologist. Give me the formulas. Let me do it. How do I stop being so nasty to my sister-in-law? Oh, stop being nasty to your sister-in-law. Well, how do I get to work on time? Get to work on time. See, we overcomplicate things. Instead of saying, I will exert my will to do what is good and right, we say, give me the formulas, give me the techniques. Well, Jesus didn't give any formulas. He gave principles. He said, here's what to do. If you do this, it will work for you. But we say, well, tell me how to do that. You didn't tell me how to do that. You said, don't be anxious about tomorrow. Well, tell me how to not be anxious about tomorrow. So at one level, yes, there are better ideas and there are worse ideas. And I'm a shrink and I'm supposed to do that. And I got that. But at the very core, Jesus is the one who says, here is good psychology. If you follow it, you can build on it.
Right. Well, I noticed, I was like, I only received this book the other day, but I was quickly reading through it, and I saw you even said something about marriage, divorce, and annulments. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
There are two Catholic Church teachings that the bulk of Catholics no longer follow. One is contraception. The other is divorce. When Jesus said, don't get a divorce, our culture and many within the church say, well, yeah, you probably shouldn't, but there are an awful lot of reasons why you can legitimately leave. There was an interesting survey done, Janet, and I don't know how exactly they came up with this definition, but they said that approximately 80% of marriages end not because of pathology, not because of abuse, not because of alcoholism, not because of multiple adulterous relationships. I don't like you anymore. You're too hard to live with. I've put up with you too long. I'm unhappy. There was a survey done by a woman named Maggie Gallagher. Maggie Gallagher wrote a book called The Case for Marriage. They surveyed a whole boatload of people who were right on the edge of divorce. Some of the people left, some of them didn't leave. They persevered for whatever their reasons. At the end of 5 years, they asked both groups, are you more content now than you were in your marriage? Now, keeping in mind, they said they were miserable while they were married. Of those who stayed, the bulk of them said it got better. Of those who left, the bulk of them said, I'm either more unhappy now than I was in marriage or just as unhappy now as I was in marriage. People will come into my office and say, I know divorce is bad. I don't agree with divorce. But in my case, and that's the crack. When you crack that door open, the whole culture will run through it. And there's one finding in all of psychology that has more research support hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studies, it says divorce is bad for kids. And furthermore, it's even bad for adult kids. Jesus knows what he's talking about. Don't be so quick to walk out that door.
Okay. And of course, you take on welcome a child and welcome Jesus, right? And that's a real problem in our society right now, isn't it? Because, like you just said, contraception, abortion. I mean, I even have friends who've told me that they have kids who are getting married now and going into marriage saying, oh, we're not going to have any children because it's enough for us to take care of ourselves. Have you heard this new mindset out there?
Oh, yes. There is an interesting phenomenon that has captured our culture. We've basically decided that you can have sexual relations any way you want, any how you want, anywhere you want, with any whom you want, except you really can't have more than 1.86 children in a marriage. Then we will abuse you. Then we will accuse you of sucking up more than your share of the rainforest. Then we will mock you. We will say ridiculous things like, do you know how this is happening? Yeah, I do. Don't you? Well, don't you have a TV? Yeah, we have 5. What's your point? Are these all your children? No, of course not. The oldest is at home with the triplets. We abuse mothers who have more than 2 children. It's unbelievable in our culture. Any mother will tell me once they get to 3 or 4 kids, they don't tell anybody anymore because they're going to get hammered by their own parents sometimes, by the people who are supposed to be religious. We go after them. This is society sexually upside down.
So now, of course, you're a great example, Dr. Ray. How many children do you have?
10. But
that's all?
I needed the tax deductions. That's why. I was getting killed on taxes. I really was. Back when we got the child tax credits, I never paid any taxes at all. Janet, my 10 children all came to us through adoption, all 10 of them.
Yes, I know.
So we couldn't have children. I had a condition called Sertoli only cell syndrome. Now, you're Italian, right, Janet?
Actually, no.
No? Well,
I married an Italian. I'm Irish German. It's the big secret.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got it. So the condition I had was Sertoli only cell syndrome. It was a congenital disorder, rendered me unable to conceive. My grandmother was very happy it was Italian. She was just ecstatic that it was Italian. I threatened to sue my mother, but the attorney told me the statute of limitations had probably ended. So I told my mom, I said, this better not happen again. So we adopted.
And that leads me to this book here that I know we have this book here at Priest for Life, Adoption, Choosing It, Living It, and Loving It. Tell us about your experience. I mean, you've adopted now 10 children, not 1, not 2, but a lot. And I know you've got like a multiracial mix there in your family too. What's it been like? Because so many parents you hear nowadays who can't, having trouble conceive, of course, they go down the IVF route, all these other gymnastics to try to have their own children. It's almost like our society has put fear into people of adopting, right? I mean, what can you say about adoption? Because I know for you, it's been a very positive experience, right?
The most recent statistic I've seen is that there are approximately 1 million couples waiting for a child. Approximately 50,000 children, infants, become available every year. So the ratio is 20-1. I asked a teacher in Ohio, it's called a GRADS program, where they take unwed teenage mothers and they instruct them through the high school on how to be better parents. And I asked her, I said, how many of the girls would consider adoption? And she looked at me like I was nuts. She said, she laughed. She said, no, that's not what they do. And I said, what are the other options? I said, well, abortion is one. But she said, the other one is, first of all, in our culture, it's kind of cool to have a baby out of wedlock because you can go on social media, you get all kinds of attention, and who knows, he doesn't need a daddy, really. Daddies are kind of expendable. And she said the other reason is that the young girls think, I could never, ever do that. I could never give up my baby, not knowing where my baby is. I couldn't live with me. So they have this mindset that adoption is not loving anymore. Adoption is irresponsible. So that's what's happening. Now, back when we adopted, I asked an adoption worker, I said, if we are willing to adopt a child not of our race, how long would we have to wait? She said, what are you doing tomorrow? Then, if you were willing to go outside of your race, you could adopt much, much, much more quickly. Well, because more and more parents are open to cross-race adoption, you can't get them quite as quickly, but you still can. You still can. Many people want an infant of their own race, and that sometimes can take a while. But if you're willing to go special needs or multi-children or children of other races, you can still adopt in a relatively short period of time.
Wow. And so overall, well, first of all, your children now, how old is the youngest and the oldest? Like, what's the range of all your adopted children?
There's 12 years between my children. At what point, Janet, we had 12, 11, 10, 10, 9, 7, 4, 3, 2, and baby. I did not go home. I UPS'd my wife things. I said, honey, I hope things are going good for you. Call me if you need anything. I'm on the beach. Right now they're 34 down to 22. So they're still the same 12 years, but they're pretty much grown. Now we have one child left at home, and as soon as she leaves, my wife and I are getting into a parent protection program where they're going to alter our identities and relocate us in Montana. We're going off the grid. It's that simple.
Okay, you better watch it, not tempted to start all over again. You'll be empty nester.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I can't stay up. I couldn't stay up past the 8-year-old's 8 o'clock bedtime anymore.
8 o'clock bedtime. So when you wrote this book about adoption, obviously you wrote it from your own experience. So first of all, anyone who's watching the program right now, we still have some copies that were donated to Priests for Life, right, Dr. Ray? And I would love to send it to you. So just send me an email at orders@priestsforlife.org, and I'll send you this adoption book.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but did you ever send me those books I asked for?
Yes, I did.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I don't recall
I'll
that.
double check.
Okay. All right, please.
I'll double check. When we get off the air, I'll go to our shipping department. I'll find out.
Okay.
I'll get to the bottom of it. But anyway, for people that are considering adoption, this book should kind of help them, shouldn't it?
The book does two things. It takes on the anxieties and the question marks that people have prior to adoption. For example, can I love this child as much as I could love a biological child of my own? What will my family do if I adopt a child of another race? Maybe I won't feel the attachment that I should have. Or how much will this cost? I've read these stories where people have to go overseas for 4 months and they pay $37,000, and I can't afford that. So I address that. Or what if this child has behavior problems? What if this child has a developmental diagnosis? Can I handle that? What if my spouse doesn't agree? I want to adopt, he or she doesn't. Now what? How do I navigate that? So I deal with all the anxieties. When do I tell them about the adoption? Deal with the anxieties. And then after you've adopted, I deal with some of the most common questions I get. Adoption. How do you approach the adoption talk? What happens if you don't feel quite the attachment to this child because he's difficult to raise, and you're feeling guilty because You really, really have a warmth towards your other two natural children, but this child is a behavior problem. So now you're struggling a little bit with your own warmth towards this child. So I deal with the stuff that occurs after the adoption. Here's the big one. Here's a big one, Janet. We're going to re-release this book, by the way, in November. It's planning on being released. The question is, am I called to adopt? People would say, does God want me to adopt? And I usually say, well, it's not a feeling. If you're wondering about it, he wrote it down. In James, the letter of James, he said, this is faith that is pure and undefiled before the Lord. We take care of the widows and the orphans in their distress. Jesus said, whoever welcomes a child welcomes me. So our Lord clearly has a heart for opening up your home. Yeah, not everybody can, obviously. But if they're on the fence, and they're saying, well, I'd like to, but I'm not sure. I don't know what God wants. Well, he already told you what he wants. Now you got to decide what you're going to do about it.
Right. And there's one more thing while we're still on adoption. I think this is more prevalent today than years ago. Years ago, they were sealed adoptions and they couldn't easily find out who were the birth parents. But nowadays, with all this open adoption things, I know I've heard some couples that, on the whole thing about down the path of getting adopting, saying, oh, but what happens now if the kid is like your kids, older, young adults, and they want to find their birth parent? And how does all that work out? Because I think that's a fear that then the child will reject the adoptive parents for the birth parents. How do you?
Well, first of all, that almost never ever happens. Almost never ever. Most adopted children the vast majority of adopted children view their adoptive parents as their parents. Okay. Janet, if you were to go on the basis of pop media or Sunday night miniseries, what percentage of adopted children would you guess seek out birth parents?
Oh, well, if you watch the stuff that's on TV, it looks like 100% of them do it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That's, I think, yeah, because that's the Hollywood scenario that I think it's implanted in people's minds, that this kid's going to reject you because he's going to go find the birth parents and say, oh, the mommy I never had. That's who I want to cling to. And that's what I'm talking about, Dr. Ray. That's the scenario that Hollywood builds. And it gets everyone afraid.
100% according to the media, right?
I think so, yeah.
Do you know what the actual percent is?
What?
Under 10.
Wow, under 10%.
Under 10%. Now, of our 10 children, we have had 3 seek out birth parents. 2 of them were half brothers and sisters, so they sought out the same birth parent. In the end, it didn't work out. Okay. The birth parents, in many respects, were still struggling in the same ways that they were when they lost the children. I talked to an attorney, a family law attorney, and he says the same thing. He said, even though there are those cases where there's this warm reunion, in a very high percentage of the cases, it's not a warm reunion and it doesn't work out so well. That's the reality. It's the reality. It's just the way it is, especially nowadays, because an awful lot of children available for adoption are what you would call at risk. They've been removed from their home. They're in the custody of children's services. They're a foreign-born child. They're overseas. They're in an orphanage or they're in an overseas foster placement. So because of that, these are children who either don't have the option to seek out birth parents or their own birth parents. For example, some of our kids' birth parents are dead. It's already happened. They've already passed away because of their lifestyles or risky lifestyle.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, I hope that you've helped inspire some people who are watching. Well, first of all, I just want to remind them about this wonderful book. We still have some copies here, so you can contact me, orders@priestforlife.org. But like Dr. Ray said, there's a new version coming out in the fall. And all your books, Dr. Ray, are on drray.com, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
And by the way,
And by the
Janet,
way, Janet,
I sent
you
a scratch
a
and sniff
scratch
book.
and sniff book.
What? No, you did not. You sent me Raising Upright Kids and Jesus.
I did.
That's who you sent me.
I did.
But anyway, I just love listening to all your practical advice. I really do. I hope a lot of other people really are enjoying it. Get your books, read them, because part of the problem we have today is too many people listen to everyone else out there for advice about raising their kids, which is totally the wrong way. There is such a thing as good discipline. Unfortunately, I just love that phrase, Dr. Ray, when they talk to kids and say, now use your words. Did your mother ever say that to you? Not me. I never got to use my words. We were told to shut up, be quiet. Use my words? No.
Well, yeah, but Janet, you are more than making up for it. All those words you had to stifle, you're compensating now.
Absolutely. No, but we were told when I was a kid, I always remember being told children should be seen and not heard. Do you remember that one?
I remember that one.
Remember it well. Now it's use your words, sweetheart. Well, anyway, brothers and sisters, I hope you enjoyed my chat here with Dr. Ray Guarendi. And he always has new books coming out, but the newest one, I love this one, Jesus, the Master Psychologist. Listen to him. I guarantee you, get this book at drray.com. It will improve your spiritual life. Guaranteed. If we listen to him, we'll get in a lot less trouble. So thank you, Dr. Ray, for joining me today.
Janet, as always.
Well, brothers and sisters, thank you for joining me too on Just Ask Janet. And just remember, those great books by Dr. Ray, go to drray.com. I highly encourage you, get one of those copies today. And if you want the adoption book, I'll send that to you as a gift, a free gift for those who watch Just Ask Janet. Just shoot me an email at orders@priestsforlife.org. Until next time, this is Janet Morana, Executive Director of Priests for Life. God bless.
I will be